Chapter 1101, Special Reward. Katlia also didn't return to her senses for a few seconds. She never expected Emperor Rozel's secret mausoleum to involve the abyss. However, after some careful thought, she realized that it wasn't surprising that a conflict at that level would involve something like that. For a moment, she hoped that the queen wouldn't pursue this matter, but in the end, she suppressed this thought to the bottom of her heart. She felt that if it were her, then she would also make the same choice. All sorts of thoughts flashed through her mind as she bowed towards the end of the long, mottled table. "Thank you for your answer. I have no further questions today." The fool nodded slightly and surveyed the area. "You may begin." Just as he finished speaking, Fors, who had been mustering her courage all this while, said as she closed her eyes as though she had resolved herself to charge towards death, "Mr. World, I have a commission for you." Seeing the World Jam and Sparrow look over, she hurriedly explained, "You don't have to do much. You'll just leave me at an unfamiliar place every once in a while, and you can pick me up after a few days. If you're really busy, you can present traveling to me several times at a particular point in time for me to record." Upon hearing Miss Magician's words, the first thought that came to Klein's mind was, "Man v's wild. I have too many suitable places, such as the battlefield of the gods on the easternmost front of the Sanya Sea, Calderon City in the spirit world, the City of Miracles liveside in Grossel's travels. They're 10 times, 100 times, or even 1,000 times more dangerous than the wilderness. I'm just afraid that Miss Magician won't be able to handle the danger." Klein didn't let the World Jam and Sparrow immediately answer. He controlled the fake person and cast its gaze on Miss Magician with a pressuring look. Fors silently took a deep breath, calmed her emotions, and added in more detail, "This is the thing. I'm a Sequence 6 scribe of the apprentice pathway now. In order to digest the potion, aside from recording all kinds of Beyonder powers, I still need to record down the local customs and traditions of different places. I hope that I can become a traveler as soon as possible. Only then can I avoid most of the dangers during the war. Mr. World, I've only recorded traveling once, so I won't be able to return if I go somewhere else. I can only ask for your help. I wonder if you're interested and what kind of payment you wish to receive." So that's how it is. Justice Audrey finally came to a realization. Furthermore, she felt that Force method was really great. Especially since she's a best-selling novel author, her act of recording scenery and customs and publishing it as a book should be able to greatly aid in her potion digestion rate. Audrey nodded silently as she felt sincerely happy for her friend. However, as a senior spectator, how could she not sense Force's horror and fear towards Mr. World? She was looking forward to knowing what would happen when the two of them formally interacted. "Audrey, this state of mind isn't good. However, this is the attitude of a spectator. Force definitely wouldn't expect that the so-called crazy adventurer she fears is only a mask. Beneath it is a gentle and kind heart. I also have to work hard to digest the Dreamwalker potion. I should visit the dreams surrounding me every night." Audrey didn't show any changes in her expression or gaze as she maintained the attitude of a spectator. After the hanged man, Alger heard the magician's words. He sighed. This was because even this apprentice was beginning to break through to Sequence 5, while he was still stuck at that level. The World and the Hermit are already at Sequence 4, Justice, the Sun, the Moon, and the Star are also all at Sequence 5. Apart from the Magician, the newly joined Judgment is lower than my sequence. As his thoughts churned, Alger felt that stifled, a heavy feeling that was difficult to resolve. He wished he could immediately find an opportunity to make contributions and become a demigod, a cataclysmic Intera. He yearned to have a high position and be in a position of power. He wanted others to acknowledge and respect him and be submissive to him. He didn't wish to fall behind in the Tarot Club. Is that so? At the same time that Klein understood what Miss Magician was thinking, he suddenly recalled something. It was the identity that the other party had mentioned in front of Mr. Fool during a particular full moon. An ex-surgeon who is now a novelist. Will spreading the terrifying legends that I create into text form help me digest the bizarro sorcerer potion further? The more shocking, harrowing, terrifying, and incomprehensible the description in the novel is, the better the effects. Klein suddenly had inspiration and controlled the world J.M. Sparrow to say, "This commission is very simple, but the payment I need is very special." Upon hearing that Mr. World was inclined to agree, Fors asked in both joy and anxiousness, "What's the payment?" The world J.M. Sparrow pondered for a moment and said, "Collect information about the ghost stories that have happened recently in the various major hospitals in Backland, and write them into a small publication or have them published in the newspapers. The requirement for the novel is that it's even more terrifying and bizarre. It's best if it can be a best-selling novel." The reason why he only mentioned the matters of the major hospitals in Backland was because Miss Magician was a local author who was part of medical circles. Being able to come to know of the urban myths and use that as material for a novel was very reasonable, and it wouldn't incur suspicion. However, if she had even learned of the urban myths in the Rörsted archipelago, Fog Sea, and East and West Balham, then Zaratul's marionette would definitely visit her. The ghost tales of the various hospitals in Backland. After hearing the world J.M. Sparrow's words, Audrey was stunned for nearly 3 seconds. She had originally thought that those rumors were caused by the church's Beyonders secretly treating the injured victims. Mushroom and weeds were the negative effects of the mystical items, but she never expected it to be something else. Audrey had also guessed if it was done by Dwayne Dantes. After all, this gentleman had heard from her about the victims of the air raid. Furthermore, he was a very kind gentleman. However, due to the lack of clues and evidence, she could only believe that it was more likely to be related to the church. At this moment, she was almost certain that the clown angel was Mr. World J.M. Sparrow. Even if it wasn't, they definitely had a deep connection. A Mr. World who wears a mushroom and weed mask is the same as the J.M. Sparrow, who wears a crazy adventurer mask. Why does he act like that when he's doing something good? Is it because he needs the feeling or corresponding feedback from creating fear? Audrey thought to herself with some guesses. As for the star Leonard and the hanged man Alger, one immediately thought of the strange urban myths that the Nighthawks who belonged to St. Samuel Cathedral were discussing recently, while the other fell deep into thought about the horror stories his subordinates had heard or encountered. I've never really heard of such payment before. It's not like I'm writing a biography. Although there has been a recent war, the sales of newspapers and novels seem to have increased. My previous editor has been urging me to write a new book. Yes, I must keep my identity a secret. I have to convince my editor to change my pen name. The excuse is that novels of different styles should use different pen names. Fors didn't think too much about it. After a slight period of deliberation, she agreed, "All right, no problem." The world J.M. Sparrow chuckled and hoarsely said, "If you do well, I'll give you the opportunity to record the beyonder powers of a demigod." "No problem," Fors swept away her usual languidness and firmly replied. To her, recording a demigod's powers not only increased her ability to protect herself, but it could also effectively help her digest the potion. This also made Audrey, Zio, Leonard, and the other members sigh in their hearts. Scribes were truly enviable. Once a demigod-level expert became a backer, a scribe wielded extremely powerful strength. They wouldn't be weaker than a Sequence 5, or may even be stronger than one at times. After coming to an agreement, the scene fell silent for a moment. This was because the other members of the Tarot Club currently didn't have any requirements. Leonard had become a spirit warlock recently, and he had yet to conclude the acting principles. There was still the possibility of him advancing from within the Church of Evernight. As for mystical items, he had already bought the Word of the Sea. If there were any special circumstances, he could request to use sealed artifacts of the Church. Emlyn was reading the Sanguine's research information regarding the Moon domain every day, hoping to make a Scarlet Scholar more practical. As for the Sequence 4 Shaman King's potion formula and Beyonder ingredients, he didn't need them for an extensive period of time, nor could he afford them. Derek had recently mastered the powers of Priest of Light, and he was still very far from advancing. As for the unshadowed main ingredient, he had already obtained it. Similarly, Audrey and Zio had also recently advanced. One of them was working hard to help Mr. World, accumulating contribution points, while the other was burdened with a huge debt and was eager to repay it. Alger was in the Church of the Lord of Storms, so he had to keep a secret. He was currently in an awkward position, which required him to find a chance to advance. Furthermore, he had obtained the cataclysmic Interas potion formula from the world. Katlia had just become a demigod. She was currently deep in research on all kinds of secrets and all sorts of mysticism knowledge. She was pleasantly surprised that, despite having recently advanced, just recalling the knowledge and secrets she knew from the past had allowed her to directly digest quite a bit of the potion. Amongst them, the various things she had heard from the Tarot Club had contributed greatly. The transaction segment quickly ended as the members began their free exchange. Emlyn surveyed the area, and his gaze landed on Leonard's face. If you're an official Beyonder, how will you deal with a clergyman of an opposing faction in your area of jurisdiction? He hasn't done anything wrong, nor does he plan on doing anything wrong. Although Fainapotter had yet to start a war with Lone, they had invaded Lone's ally, Lenberg. This made the believers and citizens living around the Harvest Church look at Bishop Otravsky in an increasingly odd manner. Leonard thought carefully and said, "Protective custody."